welcome to the VGBA standard, just changed what your company needs to know, presented by Steve Barnes, Director of Science and Compliance at Aquastar. My name is Scott Webb. I'm editor of Aqua Magazine. As many of you may know, Aqua is a print and digital publication which goes to 15,000 pool and spa pros across North America and 500,000 website visitors. It is available for free both online and in print, and it's the deal of the century, really. If you want to receive that magazine, there is a website address on your screen, or just go to the homepage of Aqua Magazine and sign up. I've been editor here for a little over 20 years, and I've been acquainted with Steve Barnes for most of that time. He is one of the top experts in equipment in this industry. I mean, there would be 2 or 3 names that you'd think of who have really just been right there for every development, and Steve would be one of those people. He's been on countless committees through the industry association. He has, and he's probably the top expert in this subject, drain covers. I wanted to remind everybody that you can ask a question during the webinar. There's a control panel to the right side of your screen. Type your question in there. I'll see it. We always get more questions than we can answer, but we'll try to get to those at the end of the webinar. And if we can't, we'll try to email you a response. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Steve Barnes.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, everybody, for attending. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you today. As Scott said, I'm the Director of Science and Compliance with Aquastar Pool Products, and he mentioned a lot of committees on. I would say the most important one relative to what we're talking about today is I am the chairman of the Drain Cover Standard Writing Committee. I've been involved in this drain cover standard since 2002, back when it was at ASME. And my interest in this dates back 37 years. Actually, it goes back probably another 10 years. Is I was entrapped on a public pool drain for 1 minute and 10 seconds when I was about 13 years old. Largely my fault. I was goofing around, but nonetheless, it impacted my life and career. So when I got involved in the research and development side of the pool industry in 1984, and we started looking at pool drains, I'm like, whoa, stop, there's more going on here. This was before there was the standard. That came out in 87. I started in 84. So I'm also co-chair of the PHTA technical committee, and I've been heavily involved in residential energy efficiency standards, and then ANSI-7, the Suction Entrapment Avoidance. Basically, the focus of my career has been moving water in and out of pools safely and efficiently. This is the lab I'm standing in at the moment. If I knew how to share my webcam, I would, but this is directly behind me, and this is where we do our own ISO certified drain cover testing. So we kind of hope to control our own destiny while complying with federal law and making pools safer. So with that, let's get into what we're going to cover today. So we want to, you'll see, we've historically called this the VGB, Virginia Graeme Baker, and that was a 7-year-old Grammy who was entrapped on a flat 8-inch round drain that was 10 years old and broke. And the family has actually requested us as an industry to refer to it as the VGBA, the Virginia Graeme Baker Act. so that we're emphasizing the act and not the person. Just as an aside, the CPSC literally asked us to do that, so I share with you that bit of information and why you're seeing VGBA, the actual certification that you'll see on drain covers, will be VGBA 2017. So we'll cover what's changing with the standard. What does it mean to you? This is going to be an introductory high level as to kind of what's coming. A lot of this will be familiar. There's a couple of things, really critical changes under federal law that will definitely impact public pool owners, operators, and then anyone who's installing, designing, or servicing pools that have pools, spas, hot tubs, what have you, that have suction outlet fitting assemblies. So we'll touch on some of the action required. It really directly relates to that. Resources that'll be available to you, both from Aquastar and also the PHTA. And then I'm going to try and leave you plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So let's get started with the VGBA drain cover standard overview. So the key differences that we're going to focus on today are the difference between the Virginia Graeme Baker Act as it relates to APSP 16 2017 versus VGBA 2008. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission incorporated APSP 16 2017, and the full name of that is ANSI APSP ICC 16-2017 is the full name of the standard. On drain covers, documentation, and that kind of thing, you're going to be seeing VGBA 2017. That's what will be marked on instructions and all of that kind of thing, and certainly the drain covers themselves. You're going to hear me say that a lot because it's the fork in the road that we'll be facing. So some of the things that have changed, and I'll keep this high level because of time constraints. Keep ears out for trade shows and things like that. You'll see more of this in more detail. So clear definitions to clarify what is in federal law. The new thing you're going to see is suction outlet fitting assembly, SOFA. And the reason for that is while under federal law, these things are called drain covers, that has led many to believe over the years that the only thing that matters is that you have a drain cover that was marked VGB 2008. And while that was never the case, I would say it was the majority of people that was their understanding. So this change to this standard, the number one, it's in the title, is that it's suction outlet fitting assembly, and that's everything it takes to attach the cover all the way to the pool suction piping and everything in between. So that everything in between involves configurations, so SOFA configurations. And while unblockable drains go all the way back to what was in the standard, it was an ANSI 7 before 2007. Unblockable drains are referenced in the federal law, but there's been a lot of confusion over the years on what that exactly means. So that definition and how you rate them for flow rating, spacing, that kind of stuff has been clarified at the federal levels to just make life easier for all of us. On the certification front, there's two significant things, actually three. The first two you see here is hair testing on each pipe size. Used to be you would see a drain cover or the VGB 2008 drain covers, and this is still the case. That cover would have a flow rating for the floor and another one potentially for the wall. And so there would only be two flow ratings. In reality, pipe size, sump depth greatly impacts what that maximum limit is. And it was the CPSC who put into our standard. They participated on the writing standard in addition to approving it as federal law. And they put in the specification that we test every pipe size and every pipe location. I have to admit, at first I thought it was overkill, but now that we're thousands of tests into this, it really does make a difference, and I'll give you some data on that. That's the kind of stuff you're gonna see in instructions as these products roll out. Another thing is limited certifications. There were some certifications where they would certify the strength or fasteners, finger opening, something like that, but other aspects of the standard were not certified by the certifying agency. That practice is explicitly prohibited now. If not all aspects of the standard are tested and addressed, then it is not legal for that product to be certified. And then the one that's not shown here that I mentioned, the third one, is that the lab, like the one I'm standing in, has to be ISO 17025 certified. That's where the test data is collected. That's your NSF, UL, IAPMO, or the big three examples of ISO 17025 labs. And then there's a certification agency under each of those organizations. And it's literally different groups of people, often in different buildings, and they just look at the test report submitted, and then the instructions and all of that level of detail, and make sure that it conforms to the standard. And they have to be certified to ISO 17065. And that just means there's a lot of enforcement going on now and retesting. So please be patient with your manufacturers as we move through this process, because it's a pretty big deal. Another aspect of collecting all this information is the standard requires all of the details you need to install, not necessarily the instructions, but cover size, sump depth, flow rating, pipe size, so you know what your pool is, so you can order the proper equipment. And so it's pipe size specific flow ratings, it is the minimum sump depth, date of installation, involved, and there'll be more stuff effective with that. Now, here's the critical thing on the type. So we've talked about VGBA 2008 drain covers and the VGBA 2017. I fumbled it, oh well. So the way this worked is this is a manufacturer's deadline. So product manufactured, not necessarily shipped, but manufactured, a born-on date before May 24, 2021 is all of the rules everyone on this call should be familiar with. Product that came off the assembly line, the born-on date, if you will, that's on the product, that is required to be on the product now, has to comply with the VGBA 2017. So before, follow the old rules. After, you follow the new rules, and by after, it's what's marked on the drain cover. So that's high level. I'll cover all of that again in detail, because those are the critical things that I hope that you take away from this. So some of the new definitions, suction outlet fitting assembly, you can see here it's all the components to attach the cover to the finished surface of the pool and individual suction system, and that's the screws, the fasteners. If it's a multi-part drain where you have a cover and then a riser ring, or it could be a cover and a vented riser ring kind of a thing, all of those parts that come with it, you must follow the instructions for it to be a legal federal legal installation. So the SOFA configurations, I touched on, a manufacturer or registered design professional. I won't go into detail on registered design professionals, because they know who they are and they know they should have a copy of this standard and be following it, because registered design professionals can design large drains for water parks. If it's not large, in other words, if it's a blockable drain, it can only be certified by an NSF, a UL, IAPMO, that kind of thing. No engineers can sign off on it. Plan reviewers can't approve deviations, because these are federally regulated products. And so what's important on the SOFA configurations is the mounting orientation, the floor wall, what size is the suction pipe, what's the opening, orientation, whether the pipe in the sump goes out the side or the bottom. We found that in the hair testing, all of that makes a big difference. So, and then here's something new that's just an option to be aware of, And there's two new categories, and that's a maintenance drain. So that's literally the old school pools where they would fill them and drain them. So it's like a plug in a bathtub. And then the other is fire suppression source outlet. And in the first one, any drain cover just needs to protect that opening. There's a lot of old pools that the drain was just an open pipe, and then literally it was a drain to a creek or the sanitary system or what have you. And so we don't want those openings in pools, but how do you calculate what the flow rate's going to be when it's flowing to the sewer? It's a challenge. So basically these same thing on the fire suppression water source. That's so a fire truck can hook up to a fire hydrant that's connected to the swimming pool, and then they can use that to fight a fire. Well, what size pump do you size that drain for when you don't know what truck might show up? So the key here is in both of these cases, we're really about protecting the opening. And so it doesn't, if you can find a drain cover that fits and that has a big enough opening for what you're trying to do from an engineering point of view, those are completely legal. So just gives us some new options in the marketplace. So product specifications. This is a quote from the standard, annex in the standard. To assist users in selecting the appropriate cover grade for the application, the standard now requires certified information to be made available prior to users acquiring the physical product. Often what was the case is you didn't know, there wasn't enough information in the sales sheet or online or even at the distributor or whatever, so you didn't know what the product would work for unless you looked at it. It would have a flow rating on the surface. But the bottom line is this will give us as an industry the information we need so that we can install the appropriate product that's appropriate for the system and comply with federal law. So I mentioned all of the different SOFA configurations. Now, this is a hypothetical, but it's modeled off of real world. So there's, I don't know that there's an Acme Model A or B, but these would be, some company and then a couple of models. And so the one thing I want to call out is if you look at the very top, it's a 2-inch pipe out the bottom, obviously very common. 3-inch sump depth, common with plastic bucket, not so common with field built. This is mounted on the floor, and because it's 2-inch, it has 84 gallons a minute. You go to a bigger pipe size with a deeper sump, and you go up to 120. So there's not a big difference in those two pipe sizes, but there is a pretty big difference in their flow rating. And then you can see some examples here. When you get to the wall, often the wall flow ratings are slightly lower because the hair goes into the drain, makes a right turn, so to speak, into it, and then when you pull the hair out as part of the test, it has to be pulled out of the pipe and then across the face of the cover, and that takes more force. There's a 5-pound limit to the standard that the test labs are testing to. So you can get a sense of this. Down below, so the top Model A in this hypothetical is 8-inch, and then down below you'll see 10-inch. And you'll see at the top line of both is 2-inch out the bottom, 3-inch sump depth. And you see one's hypothetically at 84, the other's at 105. These are the trends we're seeing with the test results. The bigger the drain, the more open area as it's covered by hair. And so that's why bigger drains are going to have the higher flow ratings. Little drains are going to have lower flow ratings now that every possible combination has to be tested. So again, this is a hypothetical, but you can get a sense of what you're going to be seeing in the near future. So one of the big changes to the standard relates to driving those flow rates, and that is the old figure 2 on the left is now obsolete. That was deleted from the standard and replaced by figures 3, 5, and 6. We're looking at figure 5 here. It's the most detailed, and this defines flow path and where the hair and water is going to go. So it's more than just sump depth and pipe size. There's actually some ledges and things that have to be accounted for because they drastically impact flow rate. When we get to the Aquastar section, I'll show you the difference between a zero sump and some of that with a little more detail. But now a lot of manufacturers will continue to use, I'm guessing, they're going to continue to use the figure 2 on the left, and that's absolutely okay. They just have to document those sump sizes, and they need to provide a little bit more detail. If you're using figure 2 sumps, it's more than 1.5 pipe size diameters. Please notice that the edge, the D1 in the upper right-hand corner, that's got to be 1 pipe size shallow. So when you look at figure 5, the big picture, that does not meet the requirements of the old figure 2, because up there where you see B, that's not 1 pipe diameter in this illustration. So again, figure 2 is gone. Manufacturers can still use it, but they're going to provide you more dimensions to go with that. And I'd say that's the biggest change, because it's impacting, we have to design and test everything. Another thing that's coming, this is kind of minor, but not minor from a manufacturer's testing, and every single configuration gets a head loss curve. And so here you see an example, A, B, C, D, and I can tell you that that is real data. The A is 1.5-inch pipe, the B is 2-inch pipe, the C is 2-inch pipe, B is 2.5, D is 3, kind of a concept. Same kind of thing. If you've worked with head loss curves and TDH calculations, all of that will mean something to you, and this will be helpful. If you're not doing that, you're just looking at the max flow of the pump and sizing drain covers, and you don't need this. But it will be something that has to be provided by manufacturers, and this also has to be provided in advance of sales of the sale. So before you buy something, so you know how to design. So unblockable, this should be familiar territory for a lot of you, if not all of you. But I just want to recap, because this is now clarified clearly in the federal law. So an unblockable means that the 18 by 23 with 4-inch rounded corners, the blocking element that represents the chest to hips area kind of a thing of the 99 percentile man, if that body blocking element does not shadow the channel drain you can see here, then or a circle or a rectangle, doesn't matter the shape. If some of the drain sticks out under it, then it's classified as unblockable as step 1 of the VGBA 2017 standard. The second is when it's blocked at its maximum flow rating for the cover, because it doesn't matter what's happening underneath it, then that sets the maximum flow rate. So flow ratings of drain covers are the lower tested value of either the body block test we're talking about here or the hair test, whichever gives you a lower flow rating. And that's why the hair test drives lots of different flow ratings for different size pipes and sumps and all of that. So if it's blockable, that's where for new construction we need the dual drains or more. If it's an existing pool with a blockable, then the manufacturer will tell you whether they authorize, this is required by the standard, whether they authorize their single blockable drain to be used with, say, an SVRS gravity drainage for retrofit, or they may require dual drains, in which case, if it's an existing single drain pool, it is not legal. You do not conform to the standard if you install their single drain on an SVRS pool if they have not authorized that. Not all manufacturers are comfortable with the secondary devices concept, and they don't want the liability of having their product installed in a way they are not comfortable with. So again, that's a very important thing to look at before you purchase a blockable product. So now what does this mean for you as a company or individuals? So basically, here is the fork in the road. Number one, this is what we really want you to take away. So when you look at the drain on the left versus the drain on the right, they appear identical, certainly the plastic shape is the same, but one's got a teal dot, the other's got a dark blue dot. The difference is the one on the left says VGBA 2008, and the one on the right says VGBA 2017. And the one on the right has lots of new instructions and flow rates and pipe sizes and sump depths. The one on the left gives you a flow rating for floor and wall. It's just going to say 170 gallons a minute floor and wall. That's all it's going to give you. The key here is when you start to receive this, these products, you have to literally look at what do you have in your hand? What are you going to put in the pool? And one of my heartburn concerns is you could have the one on the left and the one on the right from distribution. And so that's kind of the messy thing we're going to have to work through. The reason being, as I mentioned earlier, the VGB, the 2017 version of the standard went into effect for manufacturers on May 24th of this year. And so right now behind me is a warehouse that's got lots of product from the old standard, and new product is rolling in under the new standard, and we're going to ship out all the old stuff first, and then we will start to ship the new stuff. And everything that meets the VGB 2008 standard is legal to purchase. The only thing we can't do is make any more of them. We can sell them to you, they can go to distribution, they can go to retail, they can be on your shelves, they can be in swimming pools. No change, just treat it like you've been doing it for the last 12 years, okay? So no change there. As soon as you start to see VGBA 2017, now you really got to pay attention, because this is where your pipe size, sump depth, orientation, all of that stuff's gonna come into play. So this is the key. I'm just speculating, but I don't know that you're going to see much of these the new stuff this summer. I think certainly our popular models, of which what we're looking on, these probably will start to ship within a month or two, maybe even sooner. I mean, we got stuff in our warehouse, but some of the other lower volume products, the specialty stuff, those could be around for oddball colors, could be around for years. So this is a really important point. If you take away nothing else, it's this today, is you got to look at the product that is in your hand to install. Everything that's VGBA or VGB 2008 is legal until it's been in the pool through its service life. A lot of them are 5 years, some 7, others are 10, typically public pools. And if it's a stainless steel type cover, almost always public pools, well, those might have a permanent life, in which case you never have to change them. But if it's a plastic cover, it will have a service life, and those become illegal when they've expired. Up until that point, and that's from the time of installation into the pool, with or without water. So that's an important takeaway for this.
Steve, can I just go over that kind of one more time? I know it's an important point. The drain covers that were that meet the 2007 standard, those are going to run out sometime, maybe after this summer or starting this summer. You'll start to see these 2017 version covers show up. And the important point is that these 2017 covers need to be installed under the new rules that will accompany them. Did I get that more or less right?
Correct. Yeah. So for example, the cover that we saw on the previous slide, I'm going to leave this one up because the VGB 2008 rules apply to all of these standards you see listed: ASME, VGB 2008, or APSP 16 2011. So you follow those rules when that product is in your hand. And there's a lot more detail coming with product marked VGBA 2017. And that will be a flow rating for every pipe size, every sump configuration. Now on that, it's minimum. So if it says a minimum sump depth of 3 inches, you can certainly use it on anything deeper. But if it says 3 inches and you have a field-built sump that's 1 inch deep, you can't use it there. So yeah, follow the rules on the product you have.
Okay, thanks.
You got it. And that was a good way to cover this, this particular slide. So the bottom line, follow the instructions of the product you have in hand. So what is the action required? Okay, so I just at a high level trying to walk through this. So the first thing, and we support customers a lot, obviously. And so one of the very first things is, okay, what size, what do you have? Is it an 8 inch, a 10 inch, a square, a 9? What do you got in the pool? The next thing is what is the maximum system flow rate? So what does that drain or drains need to be able to handle? That's going to drive your selection. Obviously, if it's 12 by 12, or let me stick with the more common one, an 8 inch round, well, okay, so you need to look at those. Then you need to look at your flow rate of your system and pick a cover that has a flow rating. But then complicating things is what is the pipe size in that pool and how deep is that pipe? All of those things result in different flow rates in that Acme example I gave you. Then that allows you to select the correct cover. And it may be, and this may be common, that you're not going to find an 8 inch drain that'll handle the flow rate of your new variable speed pump or existing variable speed pump. That very likely could be a 3 horsepower pump capable of, you know, up of 120 to 160 gallons a minute. And the 8 inch drains, I can tell you, a lot of them are, those flow rates are below 100. So you may be looking at having to retrofit your pool when the time comes to a 10 inch or something else. So heads up, that's the big gotcha in my opinion that's coming. So this is the process. What's in the pool? What's your pump flow rate? What's the pipe size? What's the sump depth? And then from there you can select, is there a like for like replacement or do you need to do something else? So here's a little bit of important things. This has the enforcement here is for public pools. So if you see an old flat drain, certainly if a missing cover, those we know are always deadly, are very, very risky, versus a proper cover installed. When is, if it's a VGB 2008 cover, is it legal? Well, you need to know when was it installed, and we know historically that the public health departments and certainly the CPSC, when they do their limited enforcement, they are accepting invoices. You know, it was purchased in April of 2018. That's that's close enough to prove that you can use that historically. If they're expired or certainly broken or missing, then whether it's if it's a public pool under federal law, it's got to be closed immediately until that repair is complete. If it's a residential pool, there's no federal oversight, but we would encourage you to encourage the property owner, hey, you got a hazard, let me give you a quote on how to fix this. In the meantime, don't swim with the pump on. If it's a flat cover, if it's a missing cover, don't get in the pool, because you can have limb entrapments and things like that. Common sense applies, but nonetheless. And all of that is the property or facility owner's responsibility. So we as a trade, it's illegal for us as manufacturer to make non-compliant product. And if you're doing the installation of stuff, you have to follow the instructions in federal law. But if you're not touching it, then the responsibility for VGBA compliance is on the pool owner operator. And again, that's not new. And neither is this compliant suction outlet fitting assembly flow rating. So the system, your dual drains or 3 or your unblockable, must have a flow rating that's higher than the maximum system flow rate, and it's pipe size specific. That's based on 100% of the flow going through the drains. Skimmers are designed to catch debris. They plug up, diverting the flow to the floor. Gutter overflow pools, if the water level drops, then 100% of the suction goes to the floor. For that reason, when you're calculating VGBA flow rates, you assume your skimmers or gutter overflow systems not operational. And then for single or dual blockables, you assume one is blocked and the remaining opening is your flow rate. If there's 3 or more, again, you just assume one's blocked. Unblockables, you get to add them up, and let me just show you this visually. It's a lot easier to understand. This is probably nothing new to any of you, I would hope, but the classic 3-foot minimum still applies, measured center to center, and you assume one is blocked, so the flow rating of this dual drain system on top is 170. If it's 3 of them or more, you assume one's blocking, you just add up the others. And so those 3 in a row would be compliant because a 3-foot separation under federal law, ANSI, PHTA standards, is you measure to the outermost center to center. Now, when we look at unblockables, here we got 3, but we don't assume one's blocked because each, or that model is tested with with the body block, so its flow rating, this 200 gallons per minute, let's say in this example, these flow rates vary based on how many pipes you connect and all that too. So these are affected by the changes. But in this case, you just add them all up because each one of their flow rating is based on them being blocked. So it's unblockables are very conservative drains, if you will. Obviously, they're bigger. Personally, I think they look nice. The big advantage with them, and I'd encourage everyone to consider these things for residential pools or all pools, is they're the only ones that can be flat and flush mount because openings stick out from under the body block. So they can, if it's a blockable drain and it's flat and flush mount, it fails because it just, the blocking element sticks to the pipe or to the cover and it's over. So on the note of a 3-foot separation for blockables, there is no minimum spacing. So here in the picture, you can see they're closer than 3 feet. That said, if you get out in the floor of the pool and you have room, please keep them 3 feet or more apart. Just so we don't drive plan reviewers and inspectors crazy. If you got the room, space them out. It might look nice, but you do not have to, as this example shows you. So here's one of the things we've been using maximum flow as a shorthand, basically saying, okay, I have a drain cover, it's rated for 170 gallons a minute. My pump will only do 160. I don't need to worry about TDH. But if you get into a situation where the flow rate, the max flow of the installed pump, that 3 horsepower variable speed pump, exceeds your flow rating of the drain cover and you don't want to retrofit, here's how you can validate your flow is okay. So you would measure TDH, and that's a vacuum gauge and a pressure gauge. There's resources to help you on this. So you measure the TDH, and in this example, let's say we came in at like 48, measured TDH, you go across to the specific pump curve, drop down, and it'll give you the flow rating. So the max flow of this pump curve is, let's call it 120 to keep it simple, but in actuality, the system is only operating at 90. So if you had a drain cover that was rated at 100 or 105, and there's a bunch of 8-inch drains in that range, there'd be nothing wrong. This is fine. You just can't use the max flow. And public pools, often health departments are looking at max flow. I think they're going to find that that's going to be overly restricted once we get into all these different pipe sizes and sump depths, but we'll take that on one step at a time. And the PHTA will be the point lead on educating building officials and health departments, and hopefully we'll get them to understand sometimes max flow works, but not always. Let's not require a backhoe to bring a pool into VGB compliance. So available resources, I just mentioned the PHTA. They are the publishers of this standard. As you probably know, they merged APSP and the National Swimming Pool Foundation, united a couple of years ago to form the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. So there's their website. But relative to compliance with drain covers, your #1 source is the drain cover manufacturer and their certified listing. So it kind of takes two documents, the instructions, specifications, and whoever listed them, NSF, UL, whatever the case may be, so that you can prove this is a federally compliant product. Number two is definitely start looking at product specifications, and then installation instructions obviously is where you're going to get the most detail. I can tell you we have those done for all of our products, but they're not public facing yet. We're not going to open up that side of our website until we're actually ready to ship the product. So that way we don't confuse the market any more than necessary. Oh no. Hello, hello. Well, you can hear me, but the webcam seems to have slowed down. Let me try one more time. Here we go. Okay. We're back up. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, so now I want to transition to Aquastar Solutions quickly in the next 5 minutes or so, just to make you aware of what we have to offer. We are thankful to Aqua for allowing Aquastar to sponsor this seminar for you today, or webinar as the case may be. So let me just jump right into it. And I want to leave plenty of time for instruction, for questions. Now, here is Aquastar specific information. I'm going to move on. We'll have, when we do our Q&A here in a minute, I'll leave this up in case you want to contact us. Again, the PHTA is another source. But here I want to just quickly show you our one of our unblockable drains. You've seen the channel drains. You may not have seen this. So this is a 20-inch full circle. And you can see it's just a thin line in the pool because it's unblockable. It's flat and flush mount. So it's kind of an interesting look and incredibly, you know, I hate saying anything safe because anything bad can happen, but you're definitely never going to get stuck on this thing, and it has great flow ratings. Just, it's a very good design, and I think it looks nice. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. The reason it's from safety from both hair and body block is you just can't block this circle, and it's a thin little line. The other thing is hair can't reach the center port, so it's a single port outlet with the pipe connection in the center, and so that makes it a really nice option for looks and safety. And you know, just here's a little bit closer what it looks like. It comes with the orange plaster caps for pebble, because that's pebble and exposed aggregate, so that you don't have to clean out pipes and all of that. So it's a nice little system. Here we have our family of retrofits. They're obviously designed for squares, so it's the 914 retrofits to 9-inch squares, and it's both the 1-inch deep and the 3/4-inch deep that have been around for decades. Comes with a mud frame for new installation. But one of the intriguing things about both of these, and one's a 9 and one's a 12, they're just they look the same, is that if you have a damaged mud frame or whatever, that, you know, things are stripped out, this can be attached directly to a concrete pool with these brass anchors you see here. So you can mount it to a concrete. I could suppose you could try with vinyl and fiberglass, but we're not recommending that. And just for clarity, that was a bad joke. All right, so here's a related product. This is the A10 RCFR that you've seen in a couple of previous slides. And here you can kind of see an example. Now, these are real numbers. So if we have now the photo is a 0 sump depth with an offset of 0. So this is kind of the worst case scenario. We've also tested this with 2 pipes, like 1.5 and 2-inch, and so there'll be flow ratings on that. This is certified currently to by NSF. And so here you see 3-inch pipe, 3-inch sump depth, we have 170 gallons a minute. And that's with the 3-inch pipe in the center, like the illustration you see to the left. That flow rating is 170. If you do what's in the picture here, that flow rating drops to 138. And the reason being is a lot more of the hair goes into the pipe And because it's not centered, that makes the swirling and vortexing different. So this is why that figure is so important and why pipe size is so important. So with that, made it to the questions and answers on time. Sometimes even a blind squirrel can find a nut. So with that, Scott, do you have any questions for us?
I've got so many questions, and we had so many attendees that we'll never get to even half of them, but we're going to give it a go. I wanted to just reiterate again that, you know, kind of like one of the key points that you made was that, you know, check the instructions that come with new drain covers to ensure that you're installing them in the right way in compliance with the standard that is in effect for that drain cover. I just kind of wanted to touch on that one more time. We'll probably get to that in the questions too. I'm going to do a story on this for Aqua in the next 4 to 6 weeks. This stuff's really important, and you know, we'll be trying to hammer this in Aqua to get it out there to the industry as best we can. And there, you're looking at some resources on your screen there. You can follow up there with questions that we won't get to today, because I can already see we have a lot of them. We'll start with Sophia. Sophia asked, just wanted to clarify, do we have to replace all drain covers even if they're not expired?
No, 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 no. I can't add enough no's. So this is a rolling change, much like heater efficiency back in 2013. So the Department of Energy changed minimum gas-fired heater efficiency from 76 up to 82, I think it was. So they could be producing heaters on a Friday that were at 76% efficient on Monday, if they were really good at switching over the weekend. On the Monday, they could start doing the 82. In concept, they loaded both versions on a truck that went into distribution. So you're going to go to your distributor and buy product, and you're going to have to look at it to know what you got. It's a rolling manufacturing change. And that product is valid until it's been installed for typical is 5 years. So it's in a pool now. If it's less than 5 years, you're legal. If you buy it and it's a VGB 2008 version, you get to install it. It could even sit on a back, you know, you might buy an extra set. Public pool often have them on standby. All of them are legal and comply with the new federal law until they've been installed through their lifespan.
Gotcha. Steve wants to know, and I noticed the same thing, the old non-compliant, or the 2007, 2008 compliant covers and the 2017 compliant covers that you were showing looked identical. He says, are all these drain covers identical, the only difference being the markings and the installation info provided?
Yep, that's why I showed it that way, just to cause the confusion now to run that question. So literally what's different on those two products is in that product instance, the little colored dot in the center, the one on the left says VGB 2008. The one on the right will say VGBA 2017. There's also, you're going to see part numbers, date plugs, who's the manufacturer of the mud rings. Other parts, like if it's got a riser ring, if it's a molded sump, all of those things are going to have manufacturing dates on them, who the manufacturer was, part numbers, so we can identify what's in a pool going down the road. So there's other changes that come with it, but and one more additional change you'll see certainly with our Aquastar products is where before that cover we've been showing you will say 170 floor and wall. The new one is going to say 4 flow ratings, see instructions. And the reason being is there's going to be lots of flow ratings based on what the pool is.
Gotcha. Howard wants to know, will your product numbers change as you change into the new drain covers?
No.
No.
I mean, there might be some exceptions, but those are we're introducing as new products. So it's actually not a part number change. Is we'll be introducing new products and obsoleting some old stuff. But relative to the main line, the stuff that leaves here by the truckloads, those part numbers are not changing. That's actually part of the confusion. You could order two A10 RCFRs, and one could have the VGB 2008 button on it, and the other one could be 2017, and you need to follow the instructions. Now, in our case, I can't speak to other manufacturers. You can certainly use the newest information on the old product. You can't use the old product information on the new one. You can go, you can always be more safe or whatever, more efficient. If you make product improvements, you can always use those anytime you want. We just can't go backwards for safety.
I think you mentioned this, but Jody wanted to know, for residential, when is retrofit required?
Well, for the pool to be VGBA compliant, same rules apply. What the only difference is there's no government agency. Well, there might be some cities and local jurisdictions that require residential pools to update their drain covers when they've expired, but the federal government cannot. So it's not a violation of federal law for a homeowner to have expired drain covers. What we want to do for as an industry is observe that and recommend to the pool owner that they update. And so I'd encourage you to say, hey, I noticed, your covers are probably expired. Let me give you a quote to fix that for you. If they're broken or missing, please immediately go to the pool owner and say, this is a life and death situation. You really need to deal with it. And again, offer to help, but it's ultimately up to them.
Gotcha. Okay. VGB allows one unblockable drain to be used. Does this mean I can install just one, even if the instructions say to use more than one?
No. You must follow the manufacturer's instructions. And not everyone is comfortable with a single drain pool, even if it's an unblockable. And unblockables, I don't know of a manufacturer who says you need more than one, but it is up to them. In fact, I'll go out on the limb and say if it's unblockable, those manufacturers intend for them to be used as single, but do check with your preferred manufacturer. Certainly every unblockable Aquastar makes is designed and certified to be used as a single. Another related element of this is if you have, let's call it that 10-inch retrofit, some manufacturers that do retrofits only allow them to be used on dual drains or multiple drain systems, and their instructions will tell you that. It would be illegal then, it would be non-VGB compliant to install that single drain even with an SVRS. So you have to follow the manufacturer's instructions.
Okay.
If you don't, it's the manufacturer's instructions get out of jail free card.
Right. One of your slides said figure 2 was obsolete, but I see instructions that still show figure 2. Is it okay to follow those instructions?
Yes. So if the manufacturer's instructions provide it, and I'm trying to see if I can jump back. I'm trying to jump back into the slide. Let's try this. Okay, so it's coming back up. What I want to do is go to that slide for you. Here it is here. This is one we were talking about. So here on the right, figure 5 is the information that the manufacturer needs to provide to you if it's a field built sump, so you can make it. What they can do is the figure 2 on the lower left, that is obsolete insofar as it's not in the standard, because in the original standard, it said that you either follow the manufacturer's instructions or you could use a sump in accordance with figure 2. Well, that wouldn't have been tested, and we know through experience now that that flow rating may not have been appropriate for a figure 2 sump. For example, if it was the cover was tested on a great big deep, sump that was 17 inches deep, big fiberglass public pool thing, to then put that flat grate like you see in figure 2 on a figure 2 would not be appropriate. It goes back to follow the specific instructions.
Okay, I'm gonna keep that one in mind. Our health department uses the max flow of the pump when checking VGB flow rates. Can they do that?
Local jurisdictions can be more restrictive. So the answer is yes, they can't be less restrictive. And this is where this slide that I have up now, I wanted to highlight. So if they're using max flow, what they would say that the pump on this system, the drain cover has to be able to handle that, 119, 115. And they would not allow a drain cover rated for 100, let's say. The reason for this slide being included is what we would hope is you can go out and that's the easy case. So if on this pump, if you have a drain cover rated at 170, you're just done, no heartburn, off to the races. But if it's marginal, especially if you get into the big stuff, 12 by 12s, 18 by 18s, 18 by 36, max flow of a big 25 horsepower pump, if it ran there, it would destroy itself. It would overheat at best. And so, public pools are designed to operate at the best efficiency. And so you'll want to work with your health department. One, if you can find a product that's got a higher flow rate, that's the path of least resistance. But if it's not, and you're just out of options, then you're going to have to go to this TDH physical measurement kinds of stuff. And that's where resources at the PHTA and Aquastar, within reason, we can help within reason. We can't do every single pool. We won't review every pool, but we can help with this issue, because this is what I view as one of the big transitions that we're going to have to work for on marginal, or on the bigger pumps primarily. They can just far exceed what the system was designed for.
Okay, got a question here, and again, I have to apologize. We have way more than we can answer. We've actually only got time for maybe 2 more. This comes from Rocco Russo, who's a familiar name to Aqua Magazine. He just says, is an Airbnb considered commercial or residential?
I don't know. My guess, and that's all it is well, one, that would be a local jurisdiction thing. As it relates to federal law, I don't know the answer. If we've got somebody with the PHTA online, we're going to be doing a more public pool centric, detailed webinar with them next week. Maybe we can get that teed up and answered at that time.
Okay. Christy wants to know, will you be sending this out after the presentation for us to look at? And I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes. We do record these and make them available.
We'll do a pretty PDF with smaller slides. The whole presentation's really too large, but we'll get you a smaller version that we can share.
Okay, Thomas wants to know, what significance does the born-on date have in service life of the grate, if any?
0. No impact whatsoever. The purpose of that, and that was a requirement by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. My understanding is under the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act. So it's kind of like bad lettuce, or a batch of whatever that's bad, and they say, okay, if it was manufactured in March, it's got a problem and we want to recall those, that terrible recall word. It's only in case there's some mistake with a batch. Has nothing to do with the drain cover service life, and it doesn't have anything to do, I'm going to find, where is it? These dates here. There's been a lot of confusion over the years. So my drain cover says 2007 or 2008 or 2011. Those are all the standards. And then this born on date, which will be a little date plug kind of a code thing, that doesn't apply. And one of the things I didn't mention, I should have, is one of the new requirements with the standard is it's going to come with, in the instructions or a tag or attached or somewhere, it'll say this is the model number of the cover, here's its flow rating, or look up its flow rating and write it down because of pipe size and all of that. And then it has a place as when was it installed, month and year, so that you can check that. And the idea is that you save that, you give a copy to the pool owner operator. And the instructions are going to say post this near the pump. Well, that may not be practical, certainly in outdoor settings and all of that. But there will be tools coming with the VGBA 2017 covers that will help you track that. And it's date of installation or month and year, the month of installation with or without water. And the reason it's with or without water is if if they're building a mansion, they build the pool in the backyard 2 years ahead of the house being complete. If they install the drain covers, they're in the sun and that clock has started.
Gotcha.
It's the sun that makes the drain covers expire, so to speak.
Okay, Steve, could you scroll down to that final slide that has the contact information? Because we're down to our last question. When you get high price talent like Mr. Barnes here, you got to get him off to his next appointment. So we kind of got time for one more. And this comes from Daniel Gonzalez, who says, he mentions the cross sections that we saw in the presentation, and he says, do you recommend that we put those cross sections on the plans that we submit to plan reviewers?
Oh, it's hugely helpful. It's not a requirement, but the more information, we do a lot of work at the PHTA, as I mentioned, I'm involved in that, with building officials in the ICC. If you give them the more detail you give them, the easier it is going to be to get your plans reviewed. Is it required? No, but they may ask for it.
Okay. That's all we're going to have time for today. Until we got really into talking about this issue kind of snuck up on me with everything else that's been going on. But it's a huge issue. We're going to try to follow up with more coverage from Aqua. But I want to thank you, Steve. That was really great. I learned a lot today.
Good.
And I guess that's all we have time for. So we'll all get back to work. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thanks for attending.